morning. Welcome. Happy St. Patrick's Day. I am wearing green, but it's really dark green, so I'm not sure if you can even tell in the video. But happy St. Patrick's Day, happy Wednesday. Welcome. This is our weight management class, third Wednesday of the month, every month. My name is Melissa. I'm HealthWare's registered dietitian and personal trainer. I'm happy to be here with you today. Welcome, whether you're watching live right now at 11 a.m. with me, or the recorded version later on, or even on our YouTube channel. This video will at some point make its way to our YouTube channel as well. Today, for our weight management class, we are talking about portion control without calorie counting. I've got all kinds of show and tell again today. Let me know if you have any questions or any comments in the little chat section of this video here on Facebook. Happy to hear or see, I guess, to see any comments, any questions. Let's get going. So, portion control without calorie counting. That's our topic of the day for our weight management class. Nutrition is arguably the most important component of weight management or weight loss. Think about this. For someone who weighs 180 pounds, it would take about an hour and a half of constant running to burn off the calories of a cheeseburger and fries from In-N-Out, which can be eaten in a matter of minutes. Exercise plays a role in weight management, as do other factors like sleep, hormones, etc. But nutrition can make or break everything. It is very difficult to out-exercise what we eat. So before we really get into the portion control section, I do want to talk about calorie counting. Today we're talking about portion control without calorie counting, but I do want to quickly touch on it. In my experience, working with patients over the years, those who have the greatest success with weight management or weight loss are those who accurately calorie count and or track their intake in some way, at least on a temporary basis. One method I frequently recommend is to track intake with MyFitnessPal. It's an app and it is free. And to take advantage of the features within it of the barcode scanning and the create a recipe function. I hope to do a video actually sometime soon on using MyFitnessPal, the app, because it can be confusing for some people and it actually can be used inaccurately and ineffectively. So that's another class for another time, but I did want to mention that even though today we're talking about portion control without calorie counting for weight management, I do find that the majority of people who are most successful do in some way count calories or track their intake. That's not that everyone has to for weight loss though. It is possible to have successful weight loss or weight management without counting calories at all. Of course, it's not as precise, but it can still produce great results when done with intention, and that is important. One of the easiest ways to control portions without calorie counting is to use the plate method, and this is also useful for trying to manage blood sugar actually. So that's what we're going to talk about today. There are a variety of ways to do portion control. Today we're going to talk about the plate method really for portion control without having to count your calories. So with the plate method, first you want to make sure you have a plate that is an appropriate size. I recommend somewhere in the 9 to 10 inches across, so diameter. This is about 10 inches, as is this little divided plate, which is what we will be using today to show this plate method. So this is plastic. This is from HealthWare. You can get one at the office if you want one. I have plenty. But this is a typical Corel type of dinner plate, 10 inches across. If your dinner plates are much larger than this, then that is going to be setting you up for overeating. Getting a small plate like the 7-inch sort of lunch plates, that might have you undereating a little bit, but again, it's going to depend on who you are. So you do want to make sure that your plate isn't too big or too large. 9 to 10 inches is ideal. Once you have the right plate, then it is time to fill it, of course. So I'm gonna fill, make sure I have this going the right way. I think you can read this. I think everything's gonna be the right direction. So the first section is the biggest section. And you wanna fill, I'm using tape here to stick my little notes on. You want to fill half of your plate with non-starchy vegetables. So half of the plate, non-starchy vegetables. Non-starchy vegetables are low in calories as well as carbohydrates if you're trying to watch your blood sugar. In addition, they're high in vitamins, minerals, and fiber, which make them an appropriate part and a very important part of a healthy diet. Think of non-starchy vegetables as high volume foods and low calorie foods. For example, 1 cup of cooked broccoli, 1 cup, is the same amount of calories as a half teaspoon of butter. Same calories, high volume, low calorie food, high calorie, low volume food. So hopefully that makes sense. These non-starchy vegetables can really add lots of volume, lots of bulk to your meals, making you feel fuller, and you're eating a lot of food still, even though it's for minimal calories. All right, so examples of the non-starchy vegetables would be tons of vegetables. Almost every vegetable. There are a few exceptions, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, but asparagus, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, carrots, celery, cucumber, eggplant, leafy greens, any of those salad greens, mushrooms, green peas. Oh, that's not right, not green peas. Pardon me. Snow peas, that's what I meant to say. Snow peas, bell peppers, zucchini, spaghetti squash, tomatoes. Those are not all inclusive. There are certainly more that are in that non-starchy vegetable category. And there are, like I said, a few exceptions. We'll touch on those in just a few minutes. So with this plate, maybe you have some broccoli in your vegetable section and maybe some carrots. So those would fill up your non-starchy vegetable section. I have the real food versions here too. So celery, any of the salad greens, mushrooms, I don't know if I mentioned those. All of those types of vegetables that you make with salads or that you can steam or roast, those are all great. And you want to prepare them in a way that does not contain added fat. So frying or sauteing in oil, those kind of preparations, you want to keep minimal fat. Steaming, roasting, boiling, or raw, those would be ideal. Or grilling without oil, that would be the ideal way to do it without the added fat. The next section that we're going to talk about is to fill, oops, let me get my tape, to fill 1/4 of your plate with lean protein foods. So there we go. Oops. There we go. 1/4 of your plate is going to have the lean protein foods within it. Protein foods, mainly those from animal sources, do usually contain saturated fat, which may increase your risk of heart disease. So the lean proteins are lower in saturated fat and total fat, and that makes them a healthier choice. Plant-based sources in general are also going to be a better, healthier protein choice to keep the saturated fat down to a minimum. So examples of animal-based lean proteins would be cheese, cottage cheese, eggs and egg whites, chicken, turkey without the skin, fish like salmon, cod, tilapia, and tuna, shellfish like shrimp, scallops, and clams, lean cuts of beef, so like chuck, round, sirloin, flank, or tenderloin, and then lean cuts of pork like centerloin, chop, or tenderloin. Those would be some options for that lean protein section. So, and then examples of lean plant-based proteins, and the majority of plant-based proteins are already what's classified as lean, just to clarify. So beans, lentils, hummus, falafel, nuts and seed butters, edamame, tofu, tempeh, seitan, and other types of meat substitutes. So in our little section here, we had all of our vegetables. Here's all of our vegetables again. I don't know if I have enough hands to hold all this. And then your protein would fit over here in this little, there we go, protein section. So I think this is a little grilled chicken breast, or if you're doing plant-based, you could put your black beans over here in this little protein quarter. Some other in-person real-life foods, so garbanzo beans would be a choice for that. You have eggs or egg whites would even be a better choice. The saturated fat in eggs is only in the yolk. So if you're trying to avoid saturated fat, you still want to have some eggs. Egg whites are pretty much just protein. There is no saturated fat. There's really no fat at all in the egg white. So maybe you're making an omelet, you do one whole egg and then a couple egg whites to make up the volume, and you still get some of the nutrients that are in the egg yolk and the flavor that makes the omelet taste extra good. But you're still getting the volume when you add egg whites rather than multiple whole eggs. Okay, and then another option, of course, is the veggie meat, the meat alternatives. Not that I recommend eating a lot of those and replacing all of your proteins if you're trying to do vegetarian or vegan. Don't do all of your proteins as the meat alternatives. Make sure you're including the healthier types of ones, the whole foods like beans and lentils, nuts and seeds, not just the meat alternatives. Oh, and lentils over here. Lentils are a great source of protein and fiber. Wonderful food. All right, and then finally, our last section on our plate would be to fill a quarter of your plate with the carbohydrate foods. Now, those non-starchy vegetables do contain carbohydrates, but very minimally compared to the rest of the carbohydrate foods. So in our last little section, we're doing the true carbohydrate foods, and we'll talk about all of those. So 1/4, there it is. 1/4 is those true carbohydrates, those more dense carbohydrate foods. The foods in this category, they're higher in carbohydrates than any of these other sections, and that would include grains, starchy vegetables, beans, legumes, fruit, yogurt, and milk, and we'll talk about each of those sections here in a minute. Limiting your portion of carbohydrate foods to 1/4 of your plate can help keep your calorie intake down overall, as well as help manage your blood sugar if that's something that you're struggling with in addition to trying to manage your weight. Within this carbohydrate section, it is recommended that at least half of your grains are whole grains. So for example, whole wheat bread, whole wheat pasta, brown rice, quinoa, rather than white bread, white pasta, white tortillas, white rice. All right, so examples of carbohydrate foods that would go within this. So there's 5 different types of carbohydrate foods. So first, grains: brown rice, oats or oatmeal, polenta, popcorn, quinoa, whole wheat bread, whole wheat pasta, whole wheat tortillas, all of those things that are made from grains, flour, that sort of thing. So we've got our oats here and our whole grain bread, our whole wheat pasta. Over here, our little example would be some brown rice. So to round out our dish, we've got carrots, broccoli, black beans, and then our brown rice up here to make out our carbohydrate quarter. So then the next sort of category within carbohydrates would be the starchy vegetables. Different than the non-starchy vegetables that we've already talked about, starchy vegetables contain a much higher amount of starch, obviously, so therefore a much higher content of carbohydrates. So these would be peas, green peas, black-eyed peas, corn, potatoes and sweet potatoes, any of those potato versions. So these are yellow potatoes, right? Any of those type of potatoes, corn, and peas. In addition, some of the more exotic things like plantains, acorn squash actually as well, and then butternut squash. If you remember back when I was talking, spaghetti squash is more into the non-starchy vegetable category, but butternut squash and the acorn squash, those tend to have a bit of a higher starch content, so they qualify as starchy foods, starchy vegetables. Within the same category of the carbohydrates, beans and legumes do contain carbohydrates, but they also contain protein, plant-based protein. So if you're having a meat in addition, your beans could classify as your carbohydrates, or if you're doing a plant-based sort of plate, then the black beans like this would be appropriate to have beans and a whole grain up in your whole grain quarter. That is all right. Other things that can go in that carbohydrate section would be fruit and dried fruit, as well as dairy products, so milk, yogurt, or non-dairy versions of those things. Those all contain higher amounts of carbohydrates. One exception would be maybe some of those plant-based milks like almond milk, the unsweetened almond milk doesn't really contain very many carbohydrates, very low in calories, so I wouldn't count that as a carbohydrate, but most of the other types of dairy things. So hopefully all this is making sense to set up your plate, or if you want to have maybe some chicken instead, to set up your plate into sort of these quarter type of sections, with half of it being the vegetables, 1/4 being your carbohydrates, and then the other quarter being your lean proteins, all right? In addition to your plate, you want to have, if you like, some sort of a beverage. So water or a low calorie or 0 calorie beverage would go on the side of your meal. So on the side of the plate, you might want to have something to drink. So water would be the ideal choice because it contains no calories, nothing at all. Water is so good for our bodies. But otherwise, you might want to have 0 calorie or low calorie drink options like unsweetened tea and coffee. Sparkling water, either plain or the kind that has like fruit essence in it, no added sugars in the sparkling water. So Spindrift is a very popular brand these days. You can find it at Trader Joe's and Target. Or diet soda is also 0 or low calorie, but I don't necessarily recommend drinking a lot of diet soda because of the artificial sugar content, or artificial sweetener content, I guess I'd say. All right, now, combination foods. Let's talk about that because our meals don't always fit quite so neatly into this little plate with the different sections. Many dishes that we eat, that we make, combine the different food types together, like soups, casseroles, pizza, sandwiches, burgers, burritos, etc. You can still use the plate method when preparing and portioning these types of foods though. Just identify the different types of foods in the dish and think about where they would fit in to that plate. So for example, let's take pizza. I know it's a very popular food with a lot of people. In a slice of pizza, the crust would be, I'll get my plate. The crust would be the carbohydrate food. The cheese and any meats on top would then be your protein food. And then the tomato sauce and any vegetables on top would go into your non-starchy vegetables section. Try to prepare combination dishes, casseroles, pizzas, burritos, with the same proportions as the plate. So to build a pizza, to use the plate method, you would choose maybe thin crust to keep the carbohydrate and the calorie portion down, and then top it with lots of vegetables, right? Lots of vegetables instead of meat, or using a small amount of meat and cheese for that lean protein. Stick to just 1 or 2 slices, what fits on your plate, not stacked up higher and higher. Serve it with a side salad then. So you've got your pizza filling up this quarter, 1 or 2 slices perhaps, depending on the size. And then fill up your other side of your plate with salad, steamed vegetables, something in that non-starchy vegetable category. So that an entire half is vegetables. All right, in summary, you don't have to follow any special kind of diet or eating plan, really specific nutrition meal plan to manage your weight, to lose weight, or to manage it. However, you do actually need to think about your nutrition to some extent. I'm sorry to say that, it's true. You do need to think about your nutrition at least a little bit. For most people, more so than the exercise component. The plate method we just discussed is one of the simpler ways to manage your intake without going crazy with counting calories or measuring everything with measuring cups and measuring spoons. Try it out for 1 week, see how it goes. Let me know if you want a plate like this. I have a stack of them at the HealthAware office and I'm happy to give them out, that's the point. Let me know if you want one of these plates to help guide you with setting up your plate in a healthy way. What do you have to lose besides weight? Thank you all so much for joining me today. I didn't see any questions come through, so hopefully I covered everything thoroughly. I will be back again next month with another topic of weight management. And I'll see you again tomorrow here for our strength training and our stretch class. This video is going to be here, of course, on our Facebook, and we also do have a YouTube page that we just set up, and videos are going to be, I'm working on getting videos added to that. So if you have friends, family that don't have Facebook accounts, they are able to access all of our classes, not live, but the recorded versions of them on our YouTube channel. If you want to search, I will be sending out an email later today with the direct link, but you can also just search in YouTube. In the search bar, you can type in CMHS space Health Aware, one word, and when you search, you'll see a channel with our Health Aware logo, and that's our Health Aware Facebook or our YouTube channel. And again, I'll be sending out an email later today with all that. Other than that, thank you all for joining. I hope you learned something today. And again, let me know if you'd like a plate. Until next time, everyone, happy St. Patrick's Day.